It's the last episode of the year, which means we are contractually obligated to look back and forward to make predictions and see what we learnt in this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that, you're subscribed. That's kind of how the process works. But there's also that competition we're doing at the moment where people who subscribe over December, January and February go in the draw to win themselves a $50 Google Play voucher. So definitely worth just hitting that subscribe button. And if you comment, you also get an extra chance to win. So if you're already subscribed, that's how you enter the competition. This being the last episode of 2024, it was kind of a given that we were always going to do a bit of a retrospective and a prediction episode all wrapped into one, because we've been dealing with so many amazing people throughout the year. There's going to be a couple of insights from people that we've interviewed recently, like Damien from Coalesce or Thibaut and Mark from De Facto. We'll have a catch up with them shortly, but then the bulk of this week's episode is actually me and Sam sitting down and having a chat. For those of you that didn't know, Sam's actually in charge of writing the Data Pro newsletter, which is linked in the bio below. You can find it, it's super easy to sign up to, it's completely free as well. Well, I've been working on the Data Radio Show side of things, so we talk all the time, we communicate all the time to make sure that the messages that we've got getting across are all aligned. But we'll deal with that one later. First of all, we asked Damien from Coalesce what he had in mind for 2025, what his predictions were going to be for the year coming up. And this is what he had to say.
Hi, I'm Daniel Walker from Coalesce. 2024, I've been really impressed with the growth and the acceleration that we've seen in AI and ML use cases. Everywhere we look, we're seeing this increasing, and I'm sure the stats will show that not only has the velocity of AI use cases increased, but the hires and the opportunity for data engineers in that field had probably grown, exponentially, and we'll see that increase as the years go on. I think that's what I'm excited for coming into 2025 is what's the next stage? Where does this go? Do we see prompt engineering jobs? I'm not sure whether that will be a job alone, but I think it's certainly going to be a skill set that everyone will add to their CV in the same way that you used to put proficient at Word and Excel and PowerPoint. It's now going to be proficient at prompt engineering. And what other skills do we all need to add to our CV to remain relevant?
De Facto is a company that's been around for a while who have been on the cutting edge of Data Vault when it comes to data management. Thibaut has been around for, well, almost since its inception, and Mark, while certainly much younger, is no less informed and up to date with everything that's going on within the industry. We sat down and had a chat to them a few weeks ago, and I asked them the same question. What does the future hold? What is their 2025 prediction? It was an interesting one, to say the least.
Yeah, it will be like very generic, and most people are saying the same. But I would say the rise of using your own data for AI. We see more and more companies want to do so. So yeah.
I think from my part that the Gen AI will go in the slope of disillusion because people think about stuff that were magic. And by the way, you need to tell them that it's not because the idea was wrong, but maybe the approach was wrong. So you need to fix, and you need to use reusable items, and whatever you are putting in proof of concept should be turned into production straight away. So that's what I see today in most of the approach, where you try to build something that works and you take a lot of assumptions. And if it's working, then you need to rework all your assumptions. And that cannot happen using our approach, because if it's working in the pod, then you just have to deploy it on the production server, and that's it, in fact. So you don't have that project to go to prod, which is, if the POC initial was already a few months, can lead to something in months also, or even in years. Doesn't make sense because it's going too fast. So I think that what most of the people will realize this year is that what they've been playing, they've been using stuff in labs, but now you need to go in prod fast and straight away. And if you choose some approach which is not working this way, then it shouldn't be the right approach if you want to move forward. So think about it.
To sum that up, would you say it's fail fast but don't get disillusioned?
Yeah, that may be very good sentence that I will steal from you maybe.
Right, as I said at the beginning of this episode, Sam and I catch up every week to talk about the information that we're putting out there. He writes the Data Pro newsletter, I do the Data Radio show, and we sort of juggle things a little bit, work on the school classroom. There's a whole bunch of moving pieces there. So I wanted to catch up with him to see how the year went, what he learned, and what insights he's been getting for 2025. Because hopefully, well, if you're a good data management person or you're just sort of jumping into the field as it were, this is going to give you a few insights into what to look out for. So let's jump over to that interview now. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. Last episode of 2024, and while I've been busy beavering away making these videos, you've been busy beavering away with the Data Pro newsletter. I'm really curious to see what your learnings were from 2024 and maybe a little bit of insights into 2025 and that process for you. I guess the first place to start is, how is the industry looking right now?
Yeah, if we sort of look at the difference between data engineering and AI engineering and the uptake of AI in data engineering, the perceived risks that there are around using AI has probably meant that data engineers as a whole and data managers as a whole have been quite slow to integrate large language models into data pipelines and use LLMs to help in the process of managing their day-to-day workflows. And this is an interesting observation that Christoph had in relation to what he's seeing in Europe, where large enterprises, the hype has been quite high, and a lot of money has potentially been put into proofs of concept and playing around with artificial intelligence. But almost the day-to-day business of running, a data warehouse and a data ecosystem hasn't yet been impacted by LLMs and AI. So there's been a sort of hype been going on in the broader side of the business, and there's been a reluctance, or the tension there is that because of the risks associated with using large language models, data engineers have been quite conservative in their adoption of AI in their day-to-day workflows. I think that is set to change in 2025. So you've got Gartner predicting that agentic workflows will be it's their number one trend for 2025 and what agentic workflows actually mean. And that's an interesting contrast to the financial markets reporting, the likes of Bloomberg, for instance, who are saying, have we reached peak AI? Yet I think the opposite is true. We're just at the beginning.
How much of that questioning around peak AI comes from a misunderstanding of what AI actually is versus, big catchy headlines? We're going to put a big catchy headline out there that says something, oh, AI bad or AI dying. But the reality is the technology itself is evolving.
Yeah. Some of this has to do with an oversimplification of, what makes a good soundbite. It's quite different to the reality of the kind of tectonic nature, or the seismic nature of what we're talking about in terms of the incorporation of AI into or generative AI into people's day-to-day workflows. I guess certainly from my perspective, I found this year to be truly revolutionary in terms of content creation. It's totally transformed the way in which you and I are generating content. I expect that's true for you. I'm not just.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so. And we're doing a bit of an experiment with that as well over the holiday period, where we're putting content out on the Data Radio Show channel that's based on the work that you've done with the Data Pro newsletter, going through an AI filter through Notebook LLM or LM, one of them, which is a tool that I know people who in academic research are using to be able to find ways to really narrow down and summarize information that could be really big and complicated and dense. So I'm really curious to see how the audience reacts to that actually over the holiday break. But it's revolutionized things.
Yeah. I think it is yet to become something that's prevalent in enterprise data management practice. However, as I've said, I think that's set to change in 2025. And probably the number one theme that keeps coming up on a recurring basis is the importance of data quality in relation to the use of LLMs. Many enterprises are struggling with the quality of their data in relation to the use of large language models. So some of the proofs of concept are not proving to be proving to be as useful as they could be because data quality is poor. So I think that's a theme that you're going to see in 2025 from a data management standpoint, is how can you actually use generative AI to improve your data quality, give you greater oversight from a data governance standpoint in terms of that overall data quality and its use with large language models.
One of the big things that popped up this year as well was the EU AI Act around data privacy, and we're seeing laws like that change all over the place. We've seen from that an increase in something that they call homomorphic encryption, which is basically being able to decipher data without actually checking the details of the data. Do you think that's something that we're going to see more of as we go forward next year, as people sort of get their heads around how it works and how an LLM can do that for you without physically having to get your hands dirty?
I think probably the most significant thing that we'll see in 2025 is the use of agentic workflows. So these autonomous agents being able to perform specialist tasks in clusters where one agent will be checking another agent. And a huge part of the leap forward is the context window, the exponential increase in an agent or LLM's context window. That means that it's, instead of it having the short-term memory of a goldfish, it's going to have a long-term memory on a particular subject. So these large context windows are going to mean that instead of agents behaving and acting and being a little bit like recent bachelor's graduates and interns, it's going to be more like having a PhD student, or not a student, a PhD graduate at your disposal. You couple that with functions like text to action, where agents will be able to operate things and so operate applications So they're going to behave like a human in terms of interfacing with a website or another application, and they'll be able to move across sites, applications, just like an employee is able to move across, web windows, applications, and start having conversations as well, and gather information through natural language, but through those conversations by listening to people. You kind of put that together with agentic workflows and these near infinite context windows, which I think we're going to see in the not too distant future. And then you couple that with recursive self-improvement, which is where these agents are actually learning from their mistakes. You're going to see a huge leap forward in 2025 in terms of what becomes possible.
With all of these changes, every time we see a technological change, the way that people interact and understand what's being presented to them and how they interact with things needs to evolve with it as well. Are we going to be seeing much in the way then next year, or have you seen it over the last sort of 12 to 18 months around data literacy and the sort of initiatives to make sure that people who are at one end of this new technology actually understand what it is that they're doing, and that end users actually understand a little bit more about how it all works?
Yeah, I guess my perception is that there's a surprising lack of literacy amongst professionals. Again, coming back to the hype and what makes a good headline. Robots are coming to take our jobs, and there's considerable burying of heads in the sand, and for many professionals, let's face it, they're too busy doing their day jobs to be able to get their head up and above the parapet. I suppose you and I are reasonably lucky from the standpoint of there's just such an overwhelming demand for us to do more with very few resources. It's kind of like we've had no choice but to look at how you can use generative AI to be like, I would say it's had at least a tenfold increase in my productivity around content creation, like at least. So coming back to your question around, literacy, I think there's a paucity of it out there. If there was one thing that is going to make the difference to people's careers in the coming years, and this is the turn of the quarter century. We're 25 years into the 21st century. This is kind of a pivot point in some respects for a whole lot of reasons globally. But from an AI standpoint, and certainly from a data engineer's standpoint, you have to be across what's going on around the use of generative AI in particular, in terms of interfacing with large language models. But if you are not actively looking at how it can improve your efficiency and I guess make you more capable as a data engineer, you're missing a trick. It's going to become increasingly relevant that you understand AI in relation to data management. In fact, there's a quote from Scott Galloway, who is a professor at NYU Stern in marketing, and it's simply this: that you need to have AI in your CV at least in 8 separate places for you to be even considered for a job going forward. And while it's very easy to put AI into your CV, employers are going to be looking for your understanding of the practical application of it.
All right. One last question for you, because I know we're running out of time. If you had the choice, this is more of an emotional question than a predictive question based on data. What's the one thing that you would hope happens next year in the world of data management?
I would say that it is seeing things from the point of view of a glass half full as opposed to a glass half empty in relation to the opportunity that AI represents. It's a case of evolve or be displaced. So in terms of what I hope might happen is that there is a broader or general realization that actually it's not the robots that are coming for your jobs, it's the more nimble people who are agile, embracing this next wave of technology, who are more likely to displace you from your job.
Perfect. Sam, thank you very much for everything this year, and once again for this conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing what 2025 has on offer. Until then, have a fantastic Christmas and a brilliant New Year.
Same to you and all of our listeners and viewers.
Hey, I want to thank everybody who has been tuning in, sitting down, listening, watching, and paying attention to what we've been putting out over the year. This is, I think, our 45th episode of the Data Radio Show that we've done, which is really quite amazing because we've met so many brilliant people who are so onto it and so clued up about the industry, around data management, around AI and new techniques and new evolving technologies. It has been a real privilege and pleasure of mine to be able to sit down and learn from them, and I really hope that you've been able to garner something from it as well as an audience. We will be back next year. We've already got a few episodes in the can lined up where we'll be talking to people about, well, how the industry evolves. So don't forget, if you've got a bit of spare time over the holidays, you can always go back and rewatch or re-listen to those previous episodes. We also have a range of new episodes coming out over the holiday period. You might have heard us talk about it in the interview just before. What we've done is we've taken the Data Pro newsletters that have been done throughout the year and we've run them through Notebook LM. It's a Google tool that creates a podcast out of information that gets fed to it. It's been used by some top-level researchers into a range of topics, mainly around disinformation, and it's really quite a handy tool for them. So we thought we'd do the same thing with our newsletter and see what it came up with. And you'll be able to get new episodes of that every day between Christmas and when we come back with fresh episodes of the Data Radio Show. So keep an ear to the ground for that and make sure you subscribe to get those notifications. Until later, make sure you have a fantastic set of holidays from everybody who works on this to all of you guys who watch it. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever other holidays it is that you support, celebrate, whatever this season means to you. We hope it is a fantastic one and we can't wait to see you next time.